Welcome to the 7th episode of the HiFi Five. I'm Ron Resnick, your moderator. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can keep doing these shows for you and giving you the content that we hope you enjoy. Our regulars are Jay Caceres of Jay's Audio Lab, Elliot Goldman of Bending Wave USA, and unfortunately, our friend Danny Kaey of Sonic Flare and EMMLabs is a little under the weather. We think he got a cold at Capital Audio Fest, so he's not joining us tonight. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your families. Welcome, gentlemen.
Everyone, welcome.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Today's episode will be one that will be probably our best yet. So let's see how this goes. I want everyone to make sure they subscribe and hit that thumbs up to get this video to do quite well. I promise you we're going to be pretty controversial with these topics.
Question number one. Who and what is more influential to consumers and hobbyists when buying components? Magazine reviews, influencers, audio forums, friends, visual aesthetics, or price? Jay, you first.
I'm going to say that right now, because of where we are, has to be influencers, YouTubers, people that have a camera. I think long gone are those days where magazines had when magazines had actually a lot of weight behind what they said. This is why you've seen now the Absolute Sound, stereo file now on YouTube. They eventually realized they need to have a YouTube presence. To me, there is much more power when you have a video camera in front of you, because I believe that it is harder to come off as fake or dishonest when you're in front of a camera. It is easier also to beat around the bush when you're writing and editing. You could be talking about product that you don't even own, made up a story about how good something sounded, but you never really had possession of it. But because you have a name in the industry, right, you could write whatever you want in order to hype up a product that you have never even seen. On video, you can't do that. Also, I think video is a lot more immediate. There is less time to, oftentimes, of course, less time to revisit what you've said. Like when you're doing you're editing your video, your whatever you're writing on print, there is multiple, passes that they do to make sure that what's being said is sounding right. On video, a lot of times it's like right now, it comes out the way it comes out. I have no way of chopping up what I'm saying. I have to just take a step back if I had said something that may have come off the wrong way and fix it on the spot. And I think that for now, in my opinion, and for the future, it's not even going to be close. I think forums to me are, and I'll say this, and it's going to piss a lot of people off, and I don't care. Forums to me are the least qualified source of information. Forums are a bunch of dudes for the most part, and I'm not going to, again, if you're taking it personal, then you might be the dude that I'm talking about, okay? If you don't take it personal, then you have nothing to worry about. But in my opinion, a lot of the people that sit on forums, okay, are people that most of the time have never even seen the shit we talk about, but they have a very qualified opinion to say what they want to say. I see a lot of websites out there that love to talk about me and, and mention me and as to why I was kicked off the website and not allowed and all of this shit. And the truth is, it's fear, man. Gentlemen, it's fear. They don't want my opinion because my name carries weight. And that's why you don't see me in such magazines, in such forums and what have you. But anyway, I leave it at that. For me, the most important one for sure right now is video, social media.
Elliot.
Well, I think this has changed and shifted over a period of time. I think certainly magazines were far more influential in the 70s and 80s, back with Harry Pearson and Gordon Holt and all the rest of it. But my viewpoint comes more as from a business perspective. Is, I'm on a retail floor pretty much most of my life, and people could say whatever they want. The most influential things for people is what it looks like and how much it costs. I think a lot of people, when they go into a store, really don't know what they're looking for. They're really not sure. They're in a strange environment. But anybody that tells you that the price of something doesn't influence a buyer, both positive and negatively, there are people that want to buy the most expensive things, and there are people that are offended by that. And aesthetics, I mean, I have this all the time. I have people that listen to things in my store and then they buy something else, and you ask them why they bought it, and it's because I like the way it looked. Okay, so I mean, it's something it's hard to argue with. I mean, they have the right to do whatever they want. I think that what Jay said is kind of true, that people are moving away from magazines into YouTube and Facebook and whatever. I don't know if people watch TikTok for audio, but I don't know about it, whatever. And the forums are, I think, becoming more and more hostile, to be honest with you. And they're kind of being overrun by a small group, like 20 to 30 people that seem to dominate all the conversation. I get told this at all the shows by people that belong to WBF, where I belong, that they don't comment because they don't want to get involved with the group of people that just kind of crap all over everybody. And I understand that too. Not everybody is thick-skinned like Jay and I and you, Ron. A lot of people want advice, and they'll ask for it, but they'll ask for it privately.
Okay. My take is, I think the magazines were falling by the wayside for quite a while. I think the Absolute Sound has done a really, really good job developing their YouTube channel. Those are very, very professionally produced things. I think Tom Martin does a great job. I have to put him on 2.0 or 3 times speed. But I think Absolute Sound's done a great job with their digital channel. I really do. As the forum representative here, I will say what I always say, which is, anytime you deal with the public, there's nonsense. I truly believe, and I'm biased because I co-own What's Best, but I truly believe What's Best has the least nonsense of any of the forums. I think there's a huge variance in experience of the forum participants. I think, frankly, AudioGone people are not terribly experienced by and large. I think that the What's Best people are significantly more experienced on average. And at What's Best, the what I call the sort of senior group, these are extremely experienced audiophiles that have developed their systems and evolved them over literally decades. And I think they do provide valuable insight and comparative information to people who are just learning about the hobby. So I do think there's a variance in the quality of what you get from reading some forums versus other forums.
I want to respond to your comments real quick.
What's that?
I want to respond to your comments before
Sure.
we move forward. As far as the Absolute Sound, yes, they've definitely created a successful YouTube channel. They're definitely growing. When it comes to the reviews and how they deliver the message, I disagree. I don't think it's really that enticing. I don't think, I mean, even Elliot has told me it's a lot more fun to see paint dry on the wall. I mean, it's it's a very black and white type of review. First of all, oftentimes you don't see the product in front of the reviewer. You see someone sitting down in a chair talking about it, and just a lot of talking, and it looks like they're reading a teleprompter. That's another thing.
It does. I mean, that makes it sound professional, but they're obviously Tom Martin didn't memorize all that. He's got to be reading a teleprompter.
So when I look at it, I always realize that when you are not making it feel organic. And I understand, I don't mean off the cuff. That's not what I'm saying. But if you sound like a robot, I just don't know how that convinces anyone. All you're doing is translating what you will write on print to video. You're not really being very genuine. You're not really being you, right? And what we want to see, I think what the audience wants to see is, let me see the reviewer that sits there writing, be himself in front of the camera and make a review without making it sound like what he writes on print. I think that's what a lot of people don't know how to distinguish is that you cannot sound like what you write on paper.
I think that's fair criticism. It sounds like they're reading their review, so to speak.
It's the dumbest thing ever. They don't understand that, and everyone watching me, I believe, would agree with me. That's number one. As far as what you said when it comes to forums and and WhatsBestForum having a higher pedigree, if you will, of audiophiles. I can't think of the right word right now. Again, I'm just being myself right now. I will say that, yes, I can agree to some extent what you're saying, Ron, because clearly there are many people on WhatsBestForum that have systems, that are really high up. I'm not going to deny that. We know that these are people that even Elliot knows in person. He's been to their houses. Elliot can, and you yourself too, can definitely say, yeah, I can vouch for that person. He does have all of that. But I do think there is a group of people there that are just shit starters. They have no qualifications. I'm still trying to figure out how they are even allowed to be in there. So, but anyway, that's just, again, raw opinion. We can move forward if you want to.
Well, I want to say something. I think that the concept that Absolute Sound and Tom Martin and stuff may be doing is okay. The message is rather hard to watch. It's very technically, it's freaking boring is what it is, okay? I don't think young people want to watch a guy with cargo shorts wearing white socks and sandals, and I also don't think a lot of those things is like putting somebody to sleep, okay?
Yeah.
I think the Absolute Sound is a good idea. I think they have the wrong personality doing it, okay? When you take somebody, for example, out of the forum and stick him on a camera and he's talking like he would talk to other boomers who are 65 years old, that's this very insulated, small thinking, old school, okay? I deal with the public every day. So does Jay, okay? Our customers are not those people all the time. We get some of them, but a lot of people have a little knowledge or no knowledge, or maybe a medium amount of knowledge, and they want to have some fun. They want to enjoy themselves. They want to understand what they're buying, and they don't want to watch paint dry. Okay. I've tried to watch some of those videos, and I mean, what it's harder than watching MSNBC. Okay, that's all I can say.
No politics. When Antika first started going to the audio shows, she asked me, "Ron, why do all these guys shop at Walmart?"
I like your wife already, and I never met her.
Yep.
Next.
Any questions to take here, guys? What do we see? Anything?
Let's go next.
I can respond to someone who talked about influencers not really having enough experience to matter much. I can understand that. I'm only partially going to disagree.
Okay,
I'm only going to partially disagree with this comment because for the most part, he is right. There is no denying in that. But I beg to differ. Everyone has seen my journey. Every person from Audiogon now on YouTube for the last 8 years almost. Okay. And so you've seen an organic growth in what I have been doing. There's a reason why I'm building 2 sound rooms. It's not because I just hit the lotto. It's because I work my fucking ass off. That's why. Right? One way or the other. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm not fucking selling coke or weed or cocaine or meth. I'm doing honest, legit work.
Yeah, well, if we were doing that, we'd be making money.
Right, under my LLC. And I believe me, when my rooms get done and I put all that level of gear that I have hiding in a closet, you will see again. But I'll always have the naysayer say, "Oh, he doesn't know shit." Okay, you'll see. They're watching my room be built. All of them are watching, and they're quietly hiding behind the curtains, just watching. A lot of these dudes that talk claim they don't follow me, but somehow they know my story. Somehow they know who I am. Somehow they know what I'm doing, but they claim to not watch me. That's what's funny.
Hey, look, Ron, everybody goes through a process of learning. Are there people on the forum that are very experienced and done a very good job? Yeah, but that's a really small percentage. I can tell you, I go to people's houses all the time, and a lot of people talk the talk, but dude, they don't walk the walk. Okay. And when you go there, a lot of them own a really expensive equipment, but it doesn't sound that great. And there are people like Jim Smith and Sterling Trail who make a living fixing all the stuff that other people can't do. So is Jay on a process of learning? I think he would admit that to you, that he doesn't know everything. He and I talk all the time, okay? And until he had somebody come to his room and actually dial in his system for him, okay? The same thing happened with, Lee Scoggins used to talk all the time. And then all of a sudden he went through the process and he went, "Oh, wait a second. I just graduated from Sizzler to Peter Luger." Okay. It's a very different thing. So everybody goes through their journey at different speeds and different times. And there are people on the forum. I'm not saying there aren't. I've been into some of these people's houses. They're very experienced. They've put together a really good system, and I give them kudos for that. Okay, but that is honestly a very small percentage of the market. And being a retailer, and Jay is to some degree also,
Yep.
we're mostly helping people on the way up. The people on the top, they don't really want our help. They don't need their help. They all know what they want to know. Okay, and that's a different customer and a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
Okay. Next subject.
Wait a second. Look, in full transparency, I was critical of Jay 3-4 years ago, but you've learned a hell of a lot in 3 or 4 years. And so, as with everybody, the more equipment you listen to, the more music you listen to, it's an iterative process. You learn over time. And I think you know a shitload more now than you did 4 years ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's, again, something that you can never buy. That's experience.
Right.
And I have documented my experience throughout the last 8 years. People have seen my videos, have watched me live with a lot of this ultra high-end stuff. And so this is why I do my consultation. This is why I do things for my business, because people they realize I'm never going to go through the amount of gear that Jay has gone through, but I'm sure, and I've seen it on video, that what I want to buy, he's had, because I've seen it. And he's actually made a lot of content on that. I want to talk to him. Give me his opinion. Let me hear your thoughts on Solution versus CH or Darzeal or whatever, what have you. And I don't know of anyone else, at least publicly, that can show everything that I've done at a high level, publicly. I'm not talking forums. I'm saying on video, on YouTube.
Question number 2. Ready? What role do audiophile consumers and hobbyists play in helping manufacturers keep quiet or whitewash problems with components or component defects?
Elliot?
I think some of them play a very big role. I think a lot of people are trying to protect brands that they own and like, and perhaps trying to protect the resale value, which I never understood anyway, where you buy something and worry about the resale value. I buy it to listen to it, but there's been a lot of examples of this over the last, maybe 2 or 3 years. I can think of, Rockport had an issue, and Darzeal had an issue, and Solution had an issue, and there's a lot of hush-hush. I know a lot of people on the forum, when the Darzeal thing broke and they went, they had financial problems. It wasn't really an equipment problem. I made some comments, not being negative, just being a realist, that generally in audio, when companies go bust, they generally don't make it back to where they were before. And, all this stuff with Darzeal and the guy coming on and making all this talking stuff, here we are a year and a half later, and what happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing has happened. Okay. And, there have been other, like I said, issues with people complaining about stuff. Recently, there's the thing about, Solution. I know a few opportunities that have happened in the last couple of years. I was a Spectral dealer at one time, and I think all these companies make good products, don't get me wrong, but why they have to hide the fact that they have a problem with something, and the problem is always the consumer's fault. They can never admit that there's anything wrong with the product, that if it broke, it's the user or the cables or the music they played or what they ate for dinner. It's never the gear. I think consumers are hiding something for people for whatever their reasons, and I think it's a really bad thing. Companies don't improve unless they have to improve.
Okay, but I want something to add, actually, or if I can answer the question now. I think audiophiles, and I'm going to include myself, are all guilty of being part of this entire secret. Don't tell the truth about what you're going through with your product. And I'm going to give you a recent example of that. The guy that you saw on my channel recently, okay, Eddie, who spoke about what he went through. Now, of course, we can debate and expand on whether it was set up properly, who was the dealer, did he know what he was doing, what cables was he using. We can expand on all sorts of variables that could have potentially led to this opinion of his. However, and most of you do not know this, but he texted me to say that dealers texted him saying to him, why would he say such things on camera? That all I was looking for were clicks, that all I wanted to do is to get more views, that he's probably never going to be able to get a deal on another HiFi product because he was vocal about what he felt about brands that he has had. So there you go. So here's an example of why some audiophiles don't get in front of the camera to say what they think or write about whatever it is that they're going through. Now, again, of course, you cannot take everybody's opinion on a product as gospel, because as Elliot has stated in the past, we need to know more about him.
What problems? I mean, the guy that you had on, as long as we brought it up, because I'd love to talk about it, made some comments about a couple of products. Okay, and I want you to understand, the guy has the right to like whatever he wants.
Yep.
You don't like one brand, you don't like another brand, that's fine. But making these hyperbolic statements about something like, I don't remember what he said about Focal, but like it was the worst speaker ever, okay? And, you know, WattX was the worst product of the year. I think that's bullshit, okay?
Okay, but that's actually not our topic. Was that guy covering anything up?
The same topic. So let me finish. So if he had come on and said, I didn't like the WattX, okay. Nobody says you have to like the WattX. Nobody said you have to like the Focal. Nobody says any of that stuff. But on one hand, the guy was saying that all dealers and reviewers are liars, including you, okay? And then when he bought shit he didn't like, he's blaming it on somebody else. So to me, the guy lost his credibility. His opinion is valid, okay? His statements were really hyperbolic and out of left field.
Okay, but that's actually not this topic. What I'm asking you guys is cover-ups about specific component problems. That guy in Jay's show, I don't think was by definition, he's not talking about a component problem if the hypothesis for this question is people cover up problems.
Covering up problems. They're already covering for Dart Zeal in the comments.
Okay, well, this is a favorite topic of mine because a lot of people tell me a lot of things because I don't repeat them, but I hear a lot of things and I know a lot of things. And I want to make very clear before I start my little speech that this does not apply to all companies. This applies to a minority of companies. This does not apply to the big blue chip companies in our industry. However, I will say that from personal experience, I would say our industry has fewer truly blue chip companies than we think the industry has. So I think it's a pretty insidious problem. A consumer sees something on the forums or reads a great review, hugely hyperbolic expectations, is all excited to get the thing, gets it, it's great, raves about it, and then 2 or 3 months later, there's some noise problem. And he talks to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer says, well, we never had this before. And maybe the customer sends it back to the manufacturer. Then the guy asks around and says, and turns out, well, you know, there are 2 or 3 other people he learns about that had this problem, and the manufacturer still doesn't want to admit there might be a manufacturing or a design defect. So it's in the manufacturer's interest to say, look, don't worry about it. We're going to give you a new unit. We'd appreciate it if you didn't talk about it. And if the consumer who enjoyed the product initially and now has a noise problem or whatever, I'm just making it up, noise problem, hum, whatever, some problem, it's in his interest to keep it secret, or her interest, because he doesn't want to torpedo the value of the product he's now going to try to dump in the used market to get out of it if the manufacturer doesn't just take a swap or something. So it's definitely disingenuous stuff going on. And in fact, that customer who now has a problem product might go on the forums and rave about it to enable him to better sell it to somebody else. So I think this goes back to a broader problem that a lot of the hobbyists and consumers in this industry are a big part of the problems we have in the industry.
I agree with you. I hear stories too. Look, to me, everything breaks. There's no such thing as stuff that doesn't break. If you deal with a company long enough, something is going to break. I mean, there's lots of parts and stuff. That's not the issue. The issue is how it's handled afterwards, okay? You know, having something that doesn't work properly, there's a million reasons why it can happen. There's shipping and handling and consumers and dealers doing wrong stuff with it and whatever. It's when it becomes more than a singular event, okay? And it happens like the thing that you're talking about. I know the same subject you're talking about with, I've talked to the same person about having 2 or 3 or 4 of the same product that all had the same low-level noise and hum, and the manufacturer said it didn't exist until they finally figured it out and fixed it, okay? And good for them. But the question is, why are you giving the customer a problem, and why are you making a big deal? Just find out what it is and fix it. Most people are not crazy. That's not to say all of them are, but most of them are not.
Mike Levine asked Ron, what do you propose? Can't think of any sort of process. Mike, I'm just advocating for a little greater transparency, a little greater honesty. If a manufacturer, it is my personal belief that despite the high prices we pay for things, there is very often inadequate testing. It's not a bad analogy, I agree, but Porsche sends their prototypes all over the world, to the desert, to the icebergs, make sure the thing works in every situation. I think that there is inadequate beta testing of many components in different kinds of systems, different combinations of impedances and electrical, 120 volt versus at 60 versus 240. A European company specializes in making products at 240 at 50 hertz. Maybe there's not adequate testing of sending that product over to America and plugging it in here and making sure 100% sure it works at 120 volt, 60 hertz. So what is the answer? I'm just advocating for slightly greater transparency, a little more honesty. If a product is not a one-off problem, but there are multiple copies of a subset of a production run that has a problem, yeah, I think that the company should take the public relations hit and be honest about it. I do.
I would have more respect for them. I mean, I know stories also of stuff going to reviewers, and reviewers on 2 sides, getting hand-selected samples, and on the other hand, having problems that they never talk about, okay? So I agree with you. If you have a preamp, for argument's sake, and all of them are buzzing, at some point in time, you got to say, hey, we have a problem. We're going to take them back. We're going to fix them or replace them, okay, or refund money, whatever's necessary. And be a mensch and stand up and admit it, okay? Have a recall, have anything. I think customers are very forgiving when they're told the facts. They're not forgiving when they're lied to.
I've seen pictures. I've seen pictures of very well-known preamplifiers in this industry, literally that caught fire. I've seen pictures. I have seen amplifiers that have been relentlessly just quit working, okay? And they continue to try to patch up those issues, and without any resolution. I don't know if the intent is to get the product to finally make it to the end of its warranty term so that then they can charge the customer, right? Because at that point, the customer has to pay. Or I also, in case you don't know, I've seen where they say, hey, we can upgrade you to the next model up. There's a new version. There's an SE model. There's a Mark II version, and it's going to cost you 15 grand, and that will take care of the issues. Do you want to go ahead and upgrade? So I think what it is there is pressure also from the manufacturers that none of this escapes. And of course, to your point, I think it's the fear from people realizing that, you know what, if I say something, it's only going to hurt me because I got to sell this stuff at the end of the day.
And I don't want to be too harsh. The reality is many of the companies in our industry are undercapitalized. They literally don't have the money to do the level of testing I'm sure those designers would prefer to do if they were better capitalized. So I don't want to be too hard. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to build exotic, complex products within, very often not as much money as you'd like to have to do the kind of testing you'd like to be able to do. I mean, that's just the reality, I think.
Yeah. Ron, and I can give you 2 concrete examples in my career of 2 companies that had problems, acknowledged the problems, and took care of them, okay? And it was painful for both of them. And I first started in this business back in the beginning. Audio Research had a preamp called an SB6, and They had a Cornell Dubilier capacitor problem. And by the way, they were the biggest company in audio back then. I mean, they were the preeminent kind of thing. This is when Bill Johnson was still alive. And they had a bad batch of capacitors. All the preamps failed. Not some of them, all of them. At 30 hours, 60 hours, 200 hours, I don't remember. They took every single one back, okay? They rebuilt and repaired every single one, and they made every customer and dealer whole, okay? About 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was a Mark Levinson and Proceed dealer, and some of you out there might remember that they had a Proceed transport and DVD player and a surround processor. That transport was a beautiful piece, but it was a problematic nightmare. They just didn't work. Okay, the different codecs, discs, I don't know technically what happened. And the processors failed. And they took them back. They gave me as a dealer refunds. We, transferred our customers to one of their other brands, which was Lexicon. We worked out deals with these people and we made them whole. There was no secret. There was no hiding anything. You can't hide it, okay? I think just that some of these high-end audio companies are so small that they're so afraid that one bad thing will destroy them. And instead, I think that the drums beat underground anyway, and it goes out there. And when you have unhappy customers that aren't satisfied, then it's actually worse. I think honesty is always the best thing.
Question number 3. Is the traditional manufacturer, distributor, dealer industry business model outdated? Why have some manufacturers abandoned the distribution model?
Well, Elliot, you could probably answer that first.
I think there's so many factors involved in this today, and it's all money. I mean, to be honest with you, it's all money. It's hard to be a distributor. I'm a small distributor, and certainly I wouldn't consider myself successful as a distributor. I bring a brand in, I sell some speakers, but when I look at it, like right now, I'm going to have to raise the prices in January, and I don't want to raise the prices. But we got the dollar and euro. The dollar's got soft against the euro. It's gone up like 8 or 9%. Freight costs continue to rise. I don't know why, but they do. It's not about, that's something I don't understand, but every shipment costs more and more and more internationally. And then you have a tariff. So there's 15% of my stuff comes from Germany. There's 15% that comes out of Germany. So when you're looking at a $100,000 item, 15% is a lot of money. Okay. Add 15% and then 9% for the currency depreciation and maybe 2 or 3% for freight differential. And you're looking at a 20% difference. And I feel bad. I don't want to raise the price. I don't want to ask my customers to pay more. It's hard enough to ask somebody to spend $100,000 rather than spend whatever it's going to be, 115 or 112 or 118. And I also think because of that, there's not really a lot of money out there. And I guess for some companies, it's just easier to sell the stuff directly to dealers, or hire a guy directly instead of have a distributor, because the finances don't work. I'll give you an example. I won't name the company. I was looking at bringing on another speaker line, okay? And the speaker line has been in the country on and off for 40 years. And it's a good product. That's not it. The current distributor failed. They want another distributor. But the only thing the manufacturer is really looking at from me is a big opening order. Okay? I should buy $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 worth of stuff that honestly, I don't see how it's going to sell. They're not doing anything, and they throw everything on a distributor. I've got to do the marketing, the advertising, the shows, deal with the reviewers and all the rest of it. It just doesn't make that much sense because it's hard to make money. It's just really hard to make money.
To me, I think the entire structure is broken, and that's just a sign of like the change of times. We've seen it with PS Audio, what, 7 years ago when they finally went back to just selling direct. We've seen it with other brands just selling direct. I also see a lot of dealers like Elliot or Mike from Suncoast Audio also taking on the role of being distributors. I know Mike has been doing it for a long time. That's also because he has more control over the product as a distributor. You also have Rhapsody Audio out of New York now with locations across the states, which are not his locations, right? They actually, which I still don't know how that works, the whole model, and maybe Ron can actually tell us a little bit more about that. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because he's also found a different way, right, to make the model something different. So it's an idea. It's an idea to put product in front of people's faces. And who knows what the future holds for me? Maybe I have a different LLC 5 years from now by the year 2030 and become a straight up dealer. I don't know. Can I split myself in half? I don't know. Can I do it? Sure. How will that impact me? I don't know. A lot of people were critical of me becoming a strong time dealer or even having my own cable line. Do you realize how many people were telling me, oh, I think that's going to change your image? Bullshit. It's the best decision I've ever made to become a strong time dealer and have actually a cable line. Bullshit. You have no idea how people have usually on average, okay, they have a short memory. I could make a video right now and make it viral and then make 50 videos after that over the next 50 days. This video that I made today that went viral is forgotten about. It's like YouTube, like the YouTube algorithm. People get over it when you continue to make more content on top. So it's the same thing with what we're seeing right now. If you think for a second that the entire dynamic of the distribution, dealership network, and now other hybrid type of businesses are not going to continue to change their strategy to reach customers, you're wrong. It's going to change drastically. Now, who will be left out? I don't know. Is it going to be the brick and mortar, big brick and mortar locations? Who is it going to be? I don't know. I think they're the ones who are going to have the most impact. The big locations that have been established for a long time, because guess what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little guys do this, they're going to start taking customers away from these big locations one at a time. It's going to impact the bigger businesses, in my opinion. Businesses like Elliot, not so much, because he's a little guy. He doesn't have a big operation with 20 employees that he has to charge full MSRP for everything because he has mouths to feed. But little guys, and I'll include myself in that, okay, we are going to be the ones taking business away, which is why I think the whole entire idea of the network will eventually shift into something else.
Bob Vicentainer has a very interesting business model. I believe he's the distributor for his brands typically. And instead of having brick and mortar dealers, which is, it's very difficult to be a brick and mortar dealer these days. It's very expensive. It's hard to make money. People sell across the country. It's hard to have, it's not easy to have captive customers. So instead of having a dealer network, Bob, my understanding is the distributor. Bob, you can come on and let me know if I'm wrong. I'm happy to correct anything I say here. Bob's a distributor, and he has his Rhapsody listening rooms in 6 or 7 or 8 locations around the country. Those Rhapsody listening rooms are not brick and mortar dealers. They're effectively home demo rooms. So different than the home dealer where you have somebody who's trying to sell a particular one or more products and perform the full dealer function of taking the money, delivering the product, setting it up. The Rhapsody listening room concept is more of a hobbyist demo room. And I believe the Rhapsody listening room people that display the components and demo the components across the country, they're not taking in money. They're not sending boxes around. They're not setting things up. They're basically just referring their people they demo the equipment to Bob, and then Bob handles the transaction. So I think it's a very interesting hybrid system that lets Bob keep the distributor revenues and allow people across the country to demo and see and hear the products without having to make people set up expensive brick and mortar stores. So I think it's an interesting business model. I think it's an interesting hybrid business model.
It's an interesting hybrid business model. I agree with you. However, here's something that I think probably Elliot has thought about. You're technically making that person a dealer of yours. If you think about it, that person is also not only a display room, if you will, of whatever it is, whatever product you have as a dealer, but that person can easily be generating sales or sales leads on their own, on his own. You see what I'm saying? So you're essentially now almost a dealer, even though you don't have to physically be there picking up the phone, and you can have a regular job, right? And then only do these things by appointment. You're still a dealer to a certain capacity, if that makes sense. You still are. And these are the guys, again, that Elliot is always complaining about. He's complaining about me all the freaking time. He says, I love you, man, but to be honest with you, I hate what you do, but I love you because I know you're not doing anything illegal. Isn't that what you told me in the past, Elliot?
Well, that's a pretty low bar.
No. But the reality is, I mean, and this is not a value judgment, and I'm not trying to whine about it. The whole business model that the audio industry works on is something developed in the 50s, okay? It was based on limited distribution, brick and mortar stores, certain dealers in certain areas, okay? Back then, dealers had to have a level of experience, they had to have a showroom, and they had to have credit, okay? Okay, because basically that's what, if you didn't have credit in a showroom, you could stand on your head. Nobody wanted to deal with you. And then this kind of shifted in a couple of stages. Number one stage is, it used to be a dealer-based business. And I don't care what the peanut gallery says or whatever. That's what it was in the 60s and 70s and part of the 80s. Everybody that wanted to do something came to a dealer. They bought their stuff there. They traded stuff there. They listened stuff there. And then we got the internet, and we got audio gone, and we had the whole industry turn over the entire marketing of the audio business to reviewers, okay? Because it was easy. If Harry Pearson said something, it would sell. If Gordon Holt said something, it would sell. The problem is they never stopped it. It continued to do this, and they keep doing the same thing over and over again. And then we had the custom business come in, okay? And what the custom business did is it sold more product for a lot of people. Again, business is business. But when you're buying a system from a custom guy, okay, and primarily custom guys are computer guys that can do programming and can install shades and lights and security cameras, they're not really audio people. And the people that buy from them never go into a store, and they never have the experience. I'm sure everybody out there that's into audio had an experience somewhere where they went from whatever they had and they heard something significantly better, and it started a fire with them, okay? Whether they walked into Lyric HiFi, or they walked into Christopher Hansen, or they walked into a friend's house, or Mike Levine had some guy over his house and showed him, okay? And all of a sudden they went from the little crapola that they had on their counter to something that was like, wow, it's like this first time you take a kid to a great restaurant. Okay, this is a whole different thing. It's a whole different experience. That went away, okay? It went away. All of it went away. And now we're all struggling trying to find, how is it going to work in the 21st century? How is it going to work in 2030 or 40? I don't really know. But I don't think high-end survives very well if it's just boxes at a discount over the internet. I just don't see that being a fulfilling way to make it grow.
Okay,
Another,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, if that's the case, boxes at a discount, the truth is, unless all dealers align, it'll never stop, right? Because if you don't ever discount, you'll be starving if you never discount.
I think that depends. I think that depends. There are some distributors and manufacturers that do really respect the traditional manufacturer distributor dealer network. So, for example, Gary Leeds of Hear This, he has a very small number of dealers. He is in direct contact with those dealers. He is involved in making sure the dealers are not competing against each other as a race to the bottom to sell the boxes. He, if a call comes into him, he sort of assigns the call to the right dealer and monitors the situation and stays in contact with the dealers so that the consumers cannot play one dealer off against the other. So, and his concept there is, I don't want to discount the shit out of my stuff and destroy my brands. I want to, maybe there's a little discount for a repeat customer or something, but he's at least sensitive to the risk of damaging your brand by discounting boxes.
Yep.
Well, Gary and I grew up in the same atmosphere with Lyric and all the rest, but that's not, and I give Gary credit for that, by the way. Gary's a friend of mine also, but that's not what's happening in the majority of the business.
I agree.
When you look at, people talk about where the new customer is going to come from, and audio stores used to sell things like Yamaha and Marantz and sell receivers and bookshelf speakers, and people would come in and buy that and they would go up the chain. Some of them, not all of them. Okay. Again, it was the experience. None of that stuff is sold in any kind of stores anymore. Almost all of it is on Amazon or eBay or, Joe's Plumbing Supply and Audio Discount. Okay. It's dead. All of that is dead. Okay. And without the experience, I don't know how it changes. Okay. I once thought that perhaps we'd have single brand stores, like we'd have a Wilson boutique or a Magico boutique. The problem is those things for most companies are prohibitively expensive, especially to get the real estate and to staff them. And most of these companies, I'm not picking at either of them because they're both pretty big, good companies. Maybe they have enough different product to fill a store and make it work, but a lot of companies don't. If I was to open a Gerbil boutique, we start at $60,000, and we don't make electronics, and we don't make sources, so we basically have speakers and wires. So it's kind of hard to open a boutique like that. And this is true for, lots of high-end companies that maybe they make a DAC or they make an amp and a preamp. So we've kind of lost, I think, some of the secret sauce or the specialty of it that made it, desirable. And, we're not Patek Philippe and we're not Rolex and we're not Bentley and we're not Rolls. Okay. We're mostly expensive esoteric rather than being a fully functional high-end industry.
Let me address that. Actually, there's one very, very big exception. Griffin, Joe Calley, the Griffin dealer in the West Coast, has just established a very big, very expensive, very beautiful single brand retail store at the Pacific Design Center in Los Angeles. He has, I haven't been over there yet. He's recently invited me to come over and check out the place, but I saw the photos. It's 3 gorgeous rooms. He has every one of the major Griffin speakers of the different lines of electronics. I think they're making such a big push there, not for audiophiles, but for celebrities and non-audiophiles that want a beautiful looking turnkey solution that sounds good. But this is an example of an effort to do a DAC and turntable source all the way to the speakers, full line, single brand, very serious, expensive, beautiful flagship store.
Well, that's what you're saying. There aren't many companies that can do that.
Right.
You gotta have serious balls.
Bang & Olufsen tried it. They're marginally successful. I don't know that they have. Bose had stores and they closed them. Okay. We had the cello thing one time ago. I know Joe for a long time. I don't know how he's doing. I hope it goes really well. And perhaps in California, you could make that happen, or in Hong Kong or New York City. But those are the exception. They're not the future of the whole business. Yeah.
It takes serious capital and balls to do something like that.
Let me ask you, on the distributor point, and actually still on Griffin, what about the trend of another way to go, which is manufacturers that had traditional distributor dealer networks, but then took the distributorship sort of in-house. I think that's kind of what Griffin did. Philip O'Hanlon set up a traditional dealer network for Griffin like 2 to 5 years ago. And I think he did a great job setting up Griffin. And then my understanding is, this is not fact, this is my understanding, the contract ended. Philip wasn't happy because he believed he did a great job setting up the dealer network. Griffin didn't do anything wrong. They simply chose not to renew the contract. And now I think Anthony Chiarella is kind of like the corporate distributor for Griffin. So that's yet another model way to go.
Luxman did the same thing. Luxman is the same thing. They don't have an actual distributor.
Wadex did the same thing too. They had a distributor, and it's more cost effective. I don't know Anthony's deal, okay, but Anthony's basically the sales manager, brand ambassador, okay, rather than setting up, distribution and warehouse and all that stuff. He arranges whatever to do and they ship the product. It's cheaper to pay one guy than to kind of do that. I personally hope that Griffin thing is a huge success. I think that there's more companies that need to do that. We talked about doing that back in the day with Levinson, back when I was in New York, because Levinson also had, because when Harman bought them, they had Levinson, Lexicon, Infinity, JBL, Revel. They had all these brands together, and they could open up a store that had enough stuff to actually support it. But I just don't see there's a desire for these companies to really invest the money. And I just want to say one thing. I worked for a watch company for a short period of time. And at that time, there was only one Patek Philippe store in the entire United States. Okay, one. And now I think there are 3, maybe 4. And it can work for something like that. There's one in Miami, but they bought an expensive building, okay, the company that I worked for, and they made the investment, and then Patek made the investment to actually give them enough inventory to sell them and make a living, okay? So it's a very exclusive brand. It's really hard to get, and the only ones that really have the stuff are their stores. And Rolex is attempting to do the same thing. They bought Wempe last year. They now have 100 retail stores. So if, I'm just picking this, if D'Agostino tomorrow decided that they wanted to have 4 high-end retail stores around the country, and they were only represented in those 4 stores, could they do it? Yes. Will it be a success? I don't know. I don't.
Got some questions now I think we could take. David Cross has something interesting there.
Which one?
David Cross, why don't so many dealers or influencers?
Why don't so many of the influencers realize and admit that they are playing a part in the downfall of the industry by protecting the lesser performance products and brands they benefit from? A lot of assumptions in there. Go ahead, Jay.
There is definitely some truth to what he's saying. There's no denying in that. There's some protection that influencers, I do believe, provide. There's a shield that we can add to brands that are not necessarily performing at the level that justifies their price point. There is no denying in that. Quite frankly, a lot of it has to do with money. A lot of it has to do with incentives. A lot of it has to do with, how is that brand moving your needles one way or the other? A lot of it is behind that. Because look, the truth is no one is, and I've said it a million times, and I'll repeat it now again, no one on YouTube, hear me loud and clear, no one on YouTube is doing anything for free. If they are a business and they have a decent following, they are not working for free. If you believe your car reviewer is telling the truth, if you believe the guy who reviews your shoes or your cologne is telling the truth, and he has a decent following, I'm going to break your heart and tell you he is also a business. And there is more than likely the same happening across the board. You cannot stop it, unfortunately.
Look, if you want to continue do you mind if I talk about what you and I talked about, Jay?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I've said this to Jay many times, that if I had to start again, I'd do what he does. And he laughed and he said, why? I said, because You're the only one in audio that gets to determine your own profit margins. Okay. The stuff he's getting, the stuff he's buying is not trade-ins. Okay. Let's be real. It's not trade-ins. Most of this stuff is coming from dealer showrooms. Some of it's coming from manufacturers. Okay. So as a dealer, okay, if I'm not saying anything out of school, if I have a $10,000 item, the margin on some of that is 40% for most products. Some are more, some are less. I don't really argue about the numbers. But in his case, he, especially at the high end, some dealer thinks he can sell a $100,000 speaker and he buys it and he has it for a year and a half. And he's sitting there with this depreciating asset that he invested a lot of money in. Okay. 50,000, 60,000, 80,000. Okay. Jay comes and Jay's the one guy that can write a check and solve his pain, okay? Because the reality is, and I'm a dealer too, sometimes to lose 20 here so that I can buy other stuff and sell it and make money is a much better idea. And he has the ability then, okay, and I'm just making this up, everybody don't bite my head off. If he can sell at 40% off of retail, then he has to buy at less than that in order to make a profit. So he's buying at 60 off, or 65 off, or 70 off, or whatever he feels he needs. That's a much better business model than mine, okay? And he's got limited product. You want that fucking amplifier? You got to buy it now because I won't have it next week. I can't order a new one for you. This is it. And the industry, to be honest with you, really, most of them don't care, okay? And some of them he buys from directly. And I'm not going to mention any names. It's not the, but this is not how it's supposed to work. And what you have is this giant race to the bottom.
Okay, well, a manufacturer selling a J is completely destroying their dealer network.
No shit.
Well, I could say to you that one of the reasons why my business model exists, right, which is reselling hi-fi gear. It's no secret. I mean, you go to my website, you'll see all my stuff for sale, but is because of, partially, I think it's the wrong dealers have the wrong product. Dealers that cut a check at that point in time, they were liquid. They were able to buy a $90,000 preamplifier and $250,000 monos, only to realize 12 months later, it's not that simple to sell something like that. So they end up having to get rid of it to reinvest, to pay salaries, staff, overhead, you name it, right? And so that's one of the reasons why my business exists, right? I, right now, don't know of anyone, unless maybe we're talking the music room, but a single man operation, right now, I don't know of anyone who does what I do at the level that I do. One person, by himself. I don't know of anyone else. Okay, and so when someone wants to get rid of something, yes, I am an outlet. There's no denying in that. And I could buy it as an end user, and dealer can't list it on AudioGo. They can't list it on eBay. They'll get terminated, but they cannot afford to lose the line that they cut a check for just to have the line on the floor to begin with, because that defeats the whole purpose of the initial investment, right? But they still need to move it. And so when I buy it, which is why I keep saying to everybody, everything you see that I have is mine, paid for. No one is sending me $375,000 Wilson Chronosonic XVX for me to hold on to it. Okay, I don't have it that good. All right, I'm not like some reviewers, magazine reviewers, that can have those products for an extended period of time. I have to cut a check for that, right? And so that's how that works. They realize a lot of these hi-fi electronics that are extremely expensive don't move. And if you have sat on that product for 2 years, in the case of Elliot with his Wattx reference, for a long time, it's not making him any money. It's
you're gonna be upset with me, but I gotta, I'm about transparency. I gotta ask you a question. You don't have to answer it. Have you ever received a component from a manufacturer in return for promoting it or marketing on your show, where you get to keep the product?
Never, okay. Not once. I have never received, and I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart, I have never been given a product and told, keep it, just make a good review about it. Not once.
Okay, fair enough.
And another thing too, by the way, guys, and I want you guys to understand one thing, why I'm not tempted by that. Okay, and maybe this is why a lot of folks have a hard time understanding my thinking mechanism. I own a lot of shit. I got a ton of product right now in boxes. So when you send me something, it's just another box at that point for me, because I already own a ton of top high caliber gear that I can easily pop open and listen to. And so you don't phase me the same way you would phase a normal audiophile or a person with much less components. They would be like, wow, but that's a $50,000 pair of speakers. Wow, if I say something nice, I'm going to own a $50,000 pair of speakers. That doesn't mean shit to me. I have like 4 of those, 5 of those.
But in fairness, if you get a product for free and you can make a profit on it at whatever level you want, that's money. Yeah.
But I have never.
You don't give him stuff for free. There might be other people that get stuff for free, but not Jay.
Okay.
Can I explain something to maybe some of the people? Because I've made all these mistakes. I've been a dealer for a long time. And this is embarrassing to me, not to the manufacturer. I was a Focal dealer a long time ago when I had my store in Fort Lauderdale. And I was selling the Utopia stuff. And they decided they were going to bring out a new product called the Grand Utopia. And they invited a bunch of us to go to France. And they paid for us to go to France, to go to a dealer meeting and show us the speaker and all the rest of it. So I went there. I had a really good time. We had a good trip. We drank a lot of wine. We ate a lot of food. We listened to music. And I got coerced. Nah, that's a bad word. I got wined and dined, and I fell in love with this thing, and I bought one. Okay, so it was a $200,000 speaker, roughly, back in 2007 or 8 or something like that. So what most dealers don't realize at the time when they buy this is they bought themselves this giant weight that goes around their neck. So I got the speaker, and the speaker has to go in my best real estate, in my best room. But that speaker is not going to do anything unless you put really good amplifiers and really good sources and really good cables. So this $200,000 thing, all of a sudden you got a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 system in the best room of your store, okay, that is basically immovable. You can't move it in and out. All of these people watching realize that when you have a big mother speaker and you finally get it set up correctly, you just can't slide them in and out. It's not that simple. And so I bought it because I knew I could sell a pair. And I had a customer in South America, and I bought a pair, and I was a big fucking hero, okay? I sold a $200,000 speaker. I made myself a chunk of change. And then what, okay? Because all my profit was sitting in the demo pair on my floor. So I didn't really make a dime, round numbers. I spent 100, I made 100, okay? But I still have the speaker. So until I got rid of the speaker on my floor, I didn't make a nickel. And with it was all the stuff, the big Krell amplifiers and the Meridian CD player. And I don't remember what wires were on it, but whatever it is, okay? And then you go on and you go on and you go, shit, okay? I'm costing myself business because people want to see and hear other things, and either I don't have the space or I don't have the money to do that. And that's where he kind of comes in, okay? Because you can try to sell it on AudioGone. Sometimes most manufacturers don't want you to put it on AudioGone, okay? It hurts the product and it messes with your franchise agreement and all the rest of it. So you can sell it sideways, okay? I know when I first met Jay, he bought a pair of XVXs from a dealer a successful dealer, a big dealer, had the speaker on the floor for over 2 years and never sold a pair.
Never sold a pair in West Palm Beach.
I worked for that man at one time. He's a smart ass guy. And when he's sitting there with, I'm just making a number up, $100,000 of his money not turning, after a period, it's like, screw this, out, move, okay? You got to turn your money in business. If you don't turn your money in business, you don't have a business.
So a good question there from David Cross. We're at an all-time high of 73 watching, guys. Thank you for that support. Keep hitting that like button and subscribing.
David Cross asks, how could the industry influencers better spotlight the bad actor manipulation that some influencers are engaged in that stains the industry worldview and rebirth or growth?
That's a very complex question, to be honest with you, because there are so many influencers out there, so many. It's difficult to say who is doing what. Really hard. It's really hard. I mean, that would take a very structured approach, and even then, remember that people believe whatever they want to believe, even if it's a lie or it's the truth. They want to believe whatever they want to believe. And I mean, as a matter of fact, I think that social media in general is causing, a lot of anxiety, because it leads to a lot of confusion. When you think you have the right answer to something, a problem you may have at home, someone else is saying the opposite, and now you're confused. Now you don't really know who to trust. And so it's a very difficult question to really answer, David.
I mean, David, part of it is nobody except the principal knows exactly the actual details. So you can't just sort of accuse people of things if you don't know the facts, and nobody's going to know the facts from the outside.
Right.
Why not? It's every night on the news they do that. Okay, another subject. Okay,
No.
I don't want to go there. By the way, Amadeus, hello, and Mike, hello. I saw you're out there. I just want to acknowledge and thank you and everybody else for joining us tonight. I think that what this gentleman asked is, kind of an impossibility. It's just, there is no HiFi police, okay? And, there are good companies and bad companies. I certainly have my opinion on a lot of them. I think that the public nearly sometimes get caught in the middle, and it's really tough to educate people. And like Jay was saying, if you go on the YouTube or you go on the forums or you go wherever, there's black and white, there's left and right. And for every guy that says something that might be true, there's another guy that calls him an idiot. Okay. And, wires are not important. They're important. Setup is important. It's not important. Tubes are better than transistors. Digital is worse than analog. Okay. I mean, all of this stuff, a lot of this is old Bubamites and stuff. And I think a lot of it is ignorance and the protection of one's ego and what one owns. Okay. And to me, I want to listen to music, and I'm not the only one that can put together a system that sounds good. There are other people, and everybody's not going to like what I like. I mean, Jay and I talk about this all the time. We can both go to the same restaurant. Doesn't mean we're going to order the same thing. And it also doesn't mean that we both can't have a good dinner. Okay. Audio is the same. I know you have a very compact view of what you want to listen to, Ron. And I think Jay has a different view of what he wants to listen to than I do. And who am I to say that Jay is wrong? I can say you're wrong, but who am I to say that you're wrong? Okay. If that's what you like, it's your money, it's your house, you have the right to do with it. I just find it sad that there's so much misinformation, and I hate that word, but there's a lot of bullshit out there, and too many people worry about the wrong things. They're worried about the wrong things, and the bus runs right over the top of them. Okay, and
we're running along. Jay, any final thoughts?
I just want to say I want to thank everybody for being with us tonight. Hopefully you have a great Thanksgiving tomorrow with your family. Don't do a lot of shopping on Black Friday for your family. Save that money so you can spend money on HiFi. And so I hope that you guys are really, really spending time with quality people, those that are really concerned with you and obviously that care about you, right? So that's all I wanted to say. Make sure you continue to hit that like button, subscribe. We appreciate it. We had our best performing video thus far, and we expect to keep getting better and better and better as we move forward into 2026.
I also want to thank everybody for coming on. I want to wish Jay and Gigi a great holiday, Ron and Tinka, to all the people out there. I want to wish Danny a good recovery. I think that some tea and honey and multi-channel music will probably make you feel better, and perhaps you can measure the difference. So that would be good for you. Don't comb your hair. And to everyone else out there who joined us, I can't tell you how appreciative we are. Please subscribe. Get your friends to subscribe. we're working on a contest for the 1,000th subscriber. So we have a ways to go. But when we get there, we're going to do something special for that person. I want to thank you all. Ron, if you want to wrap it up, again, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to Danny and Kathy. And thanks for joining us tonight. And see you next week. Bye-bye.